We'll just throw this one up over there, and we'll throw this one up over there, and we will throw that one up over there. We will take this one and throw that one up there. We will take this one and throw that one up over there. And then we will take this one and throw that one up over there. Let none doubt the tenacity of Atratzu in building walls and moving stuff through levels. Valve would be proud.
Head for the roof. There's no time to lose. Here they come.
You cannot get me. I shall throw suitcases and luggage in your face. Don't worry, lady. They can't even get us. They are broke. Ah!
Funny, you showing up on this day in particular.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to my thoughts. And today we are going to have a look, and I'm going to share my thoughts on Half-Life 2. So, just to get the early stuff out of the way, Half-Life 2, the developer is Valve. It was released November 16th, 2004, and I got my copy in the orange box oh so very long ago. So, Half-Life 2 is a first-person shooter which has strong storytelling narratives. It's hard for me to properly articulate my thoughts and opinion on this game because this was one of the first games of its type that I played. At the time that I played this one, there were only two types of first-person shooters that I had played up to this point. I only played online competitive first-person shooters, and then this was the first story-based first-person shooter that I played. I actually played Counter-Strike Source over at a friend's house, so I didn't actually... It felt familiar, it felt very similar to what I'd played, but it gave me the opportunity to learn how to play a first-person shooter, and that's what I really appreciated about it. Now, there's a lot of gimmicks in the Half-Life 2 game, which are very different than you find in other first-person shooters. Because when Half-Life 2 was released, they were trying to show off the Source engine and all of the different physics. So there are various puzzles that slow down the gameplay and take you out of the first-person shooter aspect of the game, and it turns into more of a physics-based platformer puzzler kind of game. So that's kind of one of the interesting things about the game. But progression-wise, this is the game that I compare many other games to, which makes it very difficult to compare it itself. It's like trying to measure a measuring device. How do you measure it? This is the game that I stack any other story-based first-person shooter to. So when I played BioShock, I compared it and I contrasted it to Half-Life 2. Half-Life 2 is not a perfect game. A lot of the characters, especially now, are like really rigid, and they give you this weird blank stare into your face kind of thing when they try to look away, and it's just kind of like there's an uneasiness about the different characters because they look at you and it's like, what? Whoa. Alex, look at me. Look at me, Alex. So now they're all looking at what's going on there, but eventually Alex will then look back. They'll look at me and they'll be like, what's... Come on. Yeah, see? The head tracks me, and it's just like, it's so close. There's so many cool things about it, but it's also just really dang creepy. That's one of the things that people will criticize Half-Life 2 for at this point. But even now, the game still holds up extremely well as a first-person shooter and as a story. If only Valve would, you know, get back to making games instead of pushing their client. But never mind that. So progression-wise in the game, I compare a lot of other games to it because as you go on, you get different things. So we just got the suit, and then you get to power it up. You've got health, you've got energy, or shield if you would prefer. So the suit has 25 shield right now, and it has 100 health. Depending on the difficulty that you're playing on, you can easily breeze through the game or have some bit of a challenge. And I think the hardest difficulty would still be tricky for people to get through. It's not very much of a cover-based shooter, so there's that as well. We're going to skip farther into the game, though. I have, of course, played and beaten the game several times. Let's jump into Chapter 3. So, after playing a bit of the game, you then get yourself your first weapon, which is a crowbar, and you use that to get through. And then you use the crowbar to beat some people up, and now you get a gun. And so you get weapons as you progress through the game, and you are given a new weapon after you have played and used the old weapon for maybe 30 minutes to an hour, sometimes longer, sometimes shorter. It seems like as you go through the game at various checkpoints, you are given a different weapon to work with. And this keeps the gameplay exciting, dynamic, and fluid. Then of course you have the different puzzles that you're gonna face. Gotta wait for the train to be able to hop across this part. Now, something about the achievements I would like to point out. One of the first games I played with achievements was Half-Life 2. And that's when I started upon my achieving ways, because when you look through the achievements in the game, you discovered that there are different ways to play through it. I haven't looked at these for a long time. So that it's kind of when I started to discover when achievements were added to the game, I discovered this new addiction to getting all of the different achievements. And most of them in this game were really fun, different, and interesting to play through. Some of them required you to do certain things during the story. Other ones required you to just kill Manax. And then other ones, the longest one in this game, was the Lambda Locator, which required you to find these Lambda signs, the Greek letter for L, and then getting the supplies inside of those Lambda caches. And that was the long achievement for this game. So, you have the different crates of ammo, you have the various weapons. Something I did not expect from this game was just how much tension there is at certain parts. And going back into it now, I don't feel the same amount of tension, but this was one of the scariest games I played as a kid. I will always remember going through Ravenholm as a wee little lad and getting stuck in Ravenholm, running out of ammo. I don't even want to show Ravenholm unless you get the proper build-up to get into Ravenholm. Ravenholm to me was absolutely terrifying. It's this overtaken, zombified area where they've been overrun with headcrab zombies, and it's night, it's dark, you can't see anything. It's definitely, even now, it's still creepy. And the atmosphere, there's some things that Half-Life 2 has gotten right, and returning to playing some Half-Life 2 has just reminded me, wow, some games were just made better than other games. And Half-Life 2 is still very much that in so many ways. Even if you're not thinking mechanically and you're just like, these are kind of old controls, these are very old early physics platformer type problems that they had, and yeah, that's definitely true. There are a lot of older aspects to it. the way the game was designed, it's just like Portal. There's just a lot of really good, fine detail work that was put into this game that will make it just keep on being of high quality for years and years to come. Whether it be the storytelling, the characters, and the gameplay itself is still very solid. And it's running on a Windows 10 computer at this point. So even retrospectively, it's doing an amazing job. That being said, I probably now have a lower expectation from games because, you know, some games are doing pretty terrible jobs on trying to optimize to Windows 10, or retrospectively they're not doing anything and they just break with Windows 10. So it's definitely something that I appreciate, that this game seems to just run solid on so many systems. It's run on, for me, it's run on 7, 8, and 10. Came out in 2004, so I'm sure there are plenty of older operating systems back in the Windows XP. I think that my friend was running XP, maybe running XP. It's been so long, I can't even remember. So let's jump forward a little bit more to a little bit more of a meaty part of the game. Let's go, yeah, let's do that. Let's do some vehicle action. So as you progress through the game, you also get yourself a vehicle. There are several different vehicles. 2 vehicles, actually. No, wait. 3. You get to operate a crane at one point. You get the hovercraft, which is what we're in right now. And you get a car of sorts to run on the land. So these vehicles, when I first played Half-Life 2, I was not too keen on playing anything vehicle-wise. I was never really that interested in racing games, car games, anything like that. But the controls for the vehicles in this game are very solid too, and it didn't put me off whatsoever. And for me, that definitely won me over. So now we have our first look at the head crab zombies. So let's talk a little bit about the story of the game rather than me just gushing over it. So I'm going to just confess right now, I never played Half-Life 1. The first Half-Life game I played was Half-Life 2, and I didn't get to play through it all on my own until several years after had passed, and I then got internet for my house and all that. So, you know, I was one of the kids these days when you look back and you're just like, man, it was so tough when our internet was slow. No, for me, there were days there was no internet, and I look back to those and I'm just like, man, that was pretty miserable. So I don't know too much about what happened during the Half-Life 1 story, but I can say this much. The Half-Life 2 story is basically you play as the protagonist, Gordon Freeman, who I would zoom out and show you his face, but that's really not an option. You can see him on box art and stuff like that. He is suffering from the silent protagonist syndrome, which I honestly prefer. At this point, I prefer that protagonists who are silent stay silent and they're not given voices at any point. I was streaming this game and somebody dropped into chat and said, I'd be so excited if Gordon Freeman would actually say something at the end of all the games. If Half-Life 3 is ever a thing, it would be really exciting if Gordon Freeman like just let out a bunch of curses and just yelled at everybody. And that was like his interaction. I'm like, you know what? I definitely agree with you that if Gordon Freeman did have anything to say, it would probably be a bunch of obscenities. And I think, to me, I would not want Gordon Freeman to speak unless it is, unless Ross from Accursed Farms, the creator of Freeman's Mind, unless Ross is the one voicing Gordon Freeman, I don't think I could have any other voice for Gordon Freeman. But at this point, I wouldn't want any kind of voice for him because, yeah, I just prefer that he does not talk, and you just get used to that. And all the characters act like it's normal, even though it would be really weird. You imagine having just no real social interactions with the character whatsoever. Oh, speaking of the puzzle that I'm doing, this is another example of the... Get out of here. of the gameplay being stopped for you to solve a physics-based puzzle. At the time, doing something like this was super exciting, being able to put flotation devices so you can actually go over this puzzle. Here, I'll show what happens if you didn't do it correctly. God, I hate those stupid flashing robots. So if we did not have those barrels in there and we tried to go over the jump like this, it should fail and we shouldn't be able to get enough momentum to go. Right. So that's what it would be like to fail it, and then you have to back yourself out and be like, huh, what happened? And then you have to find the extra barrels, put the barrels under there so that the jump is properly lifted up so you can get a running start at the jump. So that's an example of how to do it wrong. A firm believer in seeing somebody do it wrong helps you learn how to do it right. But definitely not something that I'm not going to want to do that for too many of the puzzles. And there actually aren't that many puzzles. It's just in the beginning that it seemed like Valve was really proud of their game client and the physics-based engine that they could use. And they were like, here, watch this. You can do this puzzle and this puzzle and this puzzle. And then after they were done with those, they're like, yeah, it's fine. Now we'll just bring it back to an actual focused narrative and not distract the player too much from the game. And then I don't think that you really run into that on Half-Life 2 Episode 1 or Half-Life 2 Episode 2, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. So, but yeah, story-wise, Gordon Freeman, silent protagonist. You are the chosen one. This is a very familiar plot for many different gamers. You're the chosen one that has been brought here by somebody known as the G-Man, and I've never understood why he's there, and there's a lot of questions that will remain unanswered until Gabe gets around to actually trying to tie up loose ends for all of us. Someday, maybe. Someday. And so, silent protagonist, he is helping inspire an uprising against an oppressive government who is keeping all of their citizens in check because they're in cahoots with off-world aliens, which there's even more to it because the Vortigaunt in this game are actually, they were apparently villains in Half-Life 1, and it was because Gordon Freeman or some scientists opened an interdimensional rift, and then it seems that they've been civilized now in this game, and there's a lot of unanswered questions that I won't understand about the backstory of it. But you know what? The game is just fine without that backstory stuff, in my opinion. I liked it just fine without knowing what was there. It adds a bit of a mystique to the backstory of the game. So I think we're just about to hit the point. Yep, we just hit the point that we get a new weapon now. So at this point, we've had a crowbar, we've had a pistol, and now we have the automatic weapon. Now we get grenades. So for grenades, I'm just going to toss one in there, throw that, close that. And then you've got an ammo box here, so it just keeps on coming back. And I just test to see if anyone's in any of these spots. I don't remember that happening. Did we get him? We got him. So, regarding the aspects of like the physics kind of thing, if you do something absolutely crazy, like for example, you throw that there, now we get to watch it explode and all the stuff goes flying. Not sure what else really to mention about the game. Towards the end of it, you do get a bit of a squad-based type thing. The game kind of changes pace every once in a while. It's an easy 10, 12 hour time sink to get into the game. If you want to see the weapons that you unlock for more of them, so you can kind of get a bit of an idea. If you don't want to know the weapons that you're going to get when you go into the game, ignore this part, I guess. You get a crowbar, and you also get a gravity gun, but I'm not going to show that one. That's probably the coolest thing in this game, is the gravity gun. You've got two different types of pistols. You got the 9mm pistol, and you've got the Magnum. The Magnum is by far my favorite weapon. Once again, being trapped in Ravenholm in the dark all by myself, almost out of ammo. Before I had a shotgun, I had the Magnum, and the Magnum is what kept me happy and safe. You got two different types of machine guns. You've got SMG submachine gun. You also have, what is this one called? Overwatch standard pulse rifle, and it just has a different, it feels like it has more kick behind it, does more damage. You got a shotgun. You got a crossbow. Crossbow is what you do for long distance shots, but as you can see, you can aim, but you can't actually fire while you're zoomed in. You got a grenade, you've got an RPG, which follows the laser point sight, and you have to use those to shoot down a certain, if you will, boss. And then there is one more special, item at your 6 key that you'll get, that you'll be able to use. And again, I'm not going to explain or spoil that one. I guess regarding the 0-point energy gun or gravity gun, it lets you pull and push things. That's all I'm going to say. The other one is kind of like, not the 6 key. That one is usable only at that one part of the game, and it's pretty fun. If you like insects, you're going to like it. If you don't like insects, well, grit your teeth and hopefully you'll get through it. Other than that, there's not much else for me to say about the game. There's a lot of light and dark scenes, so here's a bit of an example on like how it could be creepy. This game does a lot of things really well, and how it uses light and darkness. And here. Rule of thumb, if you ever see one of these, this game is the one that developed me to always shoot corpses. If you see somebody dead, just like, no, you check and you're like, are you dead? Okay, let's see if we can find something else. Alright. I think we got him. Okay. See? They come out of nowhere. And that, imagine this small little snippet. If this kind of thing gives you a bit of the creeps, imagine playing this area at night all by your lonesome back when this game was still pretty new. Yeah, it scared the crap out of me. But it is such a very good game. These guys. No, we're not even going to look at them. I'm just going to leave that one. There was a special NPC that you will hate, or yeah, you'll hate, because they're still the creepiest NPC in the game, in my opinion. But yeah, that is all what? There's an invisible wall. I guess there's an invisible wall. Let's jump into a different part of the game. Let's start back at the beginning part of this game. Now we don't want to do a cutscene though. Let's no, none of those. Let's do this one. Right where we left off with all of the different crates and stuff. So, that's my thoughts on Half-Life 2. I absolutely love the game. There are plenty of things that I can say, but there's just nothing else that I really feel does the game justice. Half-Life 2 is a solid story-based first-person shooter. There's a lot of quirky physics-based puzzles, but even now, up to this point, it's still a very solid game. Definitely check it out if you have not. If you have played Half-Life 2, maybe you can empathize with how much it scared me as a small boy. If not, well, I'll be playing Amnesia: The Dark Descent eventually, so I'll be able to experience all that good stuff for myself soon. My name's Atratzu, thank you for watching, and this has been my thoughts on Half-Life 2. Thank you for watching.
Over here! Ha, no, you don't.